The customer is always right. Is that true? Yeah, listen to the customer who called with this complaint.
Good afternoon, you're through to the Asda service team. How can I help?
Hi, I'm really not happy. I'd like to make a complaint, please.
Okay then, sir. What's this complaint about?
Well, listen, I've just bought a pizza in Asda's in Merthyr Tydfil. I just got home. There's absolutely no topping on it. You know, that's my dinner for the night.
Right, no topping on it whatsoever?
No, just bread.
Just bread and tomato sauce?
No, not even tomato sauce, just bread.
Whatever I'll say about, if you could get back to store, they'll be able to exchange this for you.
Wait. My mate, sorry, I've opened it upside down.
Oh boy. Well, complaints, they're everywhere. And they can be more significant than upside down pizza. You know what the number one complaint about followers of Jesus is? Well, I'll say this. It was happening 2,000 years ago. We're teaching through the New Testament book of Acts. Today, chapter 23. And in order to understand what's going on as we get into chapter 23, I want to give a little context, and we'll start with this. Acts 21, verse 17 says, "When we arrived at Jerusalem, the brothers and sisters received us warmly." Paul, the leader of the Jesus movement, he goes to Jerusalem and received a warm welcome by some, but not by all. Some of the same people who had Jesus crucified, they were now falsely accusing Paul of being anti-Moses. They didn't give Paul a trial. They gave Paul a beating. Verse 30, the whole city was aroused, and the people came running from all directions. Seizing Paul, they dragged him from the temple, and immediately the gates were shut. See, the Romans, they stepped in. They stopped the beatings, and they saved Paul's life. How? By putting Paul in a nice, safe prison. Prison was safer than being out of prison for Paul. But the Romans, they quickly discovered this. Verse 27 in chapter 22, the commander went to Paul and asked, "Tell me, are you a Roman citizen?" "Yes, I am," he answered. Paul's a Roman citizen. We read this verse and say, well, what difference does that make? It actually made a pretty significant difference. It means Paul, he has some legal rights. And these officials, they now have a dilemma. The Jewish crowd, they're still outside waiting to finish Paul off. To preserve his life, they really should keep Paul in custody. But lawfully, to keep a Roman citizen in custody, they need to have an official charge against him. Well, they didn't have that. Verse 30. The commander wanted to find out exactly why Paul was being accused by the Jews. So the next day, he released him and ordered the chief priests and all the members of the Sanhedrin to assemble. Then he brought Paul and had him stand before them. So the Sanhedrin, what's that? Think of the Sanhedrin this way. The Sanhedrin was basically, it's like the Supreme Court of the ancient Jews. Their decisions were authoritative. Their decisions were binding. That brings us to Acts chapter 23. Acts chapter 23, Paul, he's taken to this Sanhedrin. Here's what happens. Verse 1. Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin and said, "My brothers, I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day." Couple things in that you might not have noticed. Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin. Paul, he was making direct eye contact with these guys. Many of these people on the Sanhedrin, understand this, they were Paul's former friends. Before Paul met Jesus, he was one of the leading Pharisees. Paul, he knew these guys. And then this, verse 1, Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin and said, "My brothers." Really easy for us to read that. It's a little harder to understand that. Saying "my brothers" to the Sanhedrin, it would be like you or I going to the President of the United States and saying, What's up, dog? Right? Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin and said, my brothers, that is not the proper way to address the Sanhedrin. The standard etiquette, it was to honor them by starting with this phrase, saying, rulers and elders of the people. My brothers, no flattery. My brothers, no recognition of their authority. Very likely, the people on the Sanhedrin, they were offended by that. Verse 2. At this, the high priest Ananias, pause. Ananias, he became the high priest of Israel in 46 AD, but he was not a very godly man. History tells us that Ananias used bribery to get the things that he wanted, that he fueled discrimination and violence against the Samaritans, that this guy, he even hired assassins to take out people who opposed him. Ananias, high priest by day, mob boss by night. And I don't know how, this is the guy who was giving the moral advice. How's that happen? Well, the passage continues. It tells us this. At this, the high priest, Ananias, ordered those standing near Paul to strike him on the mouth. Boom! Jacked him square in the mouth. Don't miss what's going on here. Ananias is accusing Paul of breaking the law. What's Ananias doing? He's breaking the law. Not allowed to hit somebody in open court. See, he's doing the very thing that he's accusing Paul of doing. And there's a word that we use for that. You know what it is? Well, Paul, he responds with this, verse 3. Then Paul said to him, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. Paul, I wonder how long he had to think about that one. You whitewashed wall, you. I read this and I think, come on, Paul, is that it? Is that the best you could come up with? I mean, I've heard better trash talk during a church pickleball game. Some of you guys are pretty good at it. Whitewashed wall. Why that? Why is that the word that Paul used? Well, it's actually very important to this passage. A whitewashed wall. It's similar to what I did with my car a while back. So I noticed down on the bottom, kind of on the side panel of the car, I noticed a spot of rust. So what did I do? Did I go get out a power tool and grind that thing off? No, way too much work. I just ordered some touch-up paint and painted right over it. Problem solved. Let me show you what happened about 3-4 months later. Something happened like this. We know what happens here. The problem, it wasn't gone. It was just covered up. That's a whitewashed wall. A whitewashed wall is a wall that's been painted on the surface to hide the imperfections underneath. It looks good, but it's superficial. It looks good, but it's fake. Whitewashed wall, that's a metaphor for this word. Hypocrite. Hypocrite. Paul, in front of the Sanhedrin, calls Ananias, the high priest of Israel, a hypocrite. How do you think this is going to play out? Anybody know the answer to my opening question? What is the number one complaint that people have about Christians? They're all a bunch of, hypocrites. I'm not going to church. They're all a bunch of hypocrites. A common response that Christians have come to like is to say something along the lines of this. Well, feel free to join us because there's always room for one more. That's kind of clever, but on the other hand, I think that skirts some real pain. Maybe you're there. Maybe you've got some pain from somebody who is a hypocrite. Maybe it's your boss. Maybe you have a boss that claims to be a Christian. People think, oh yeah, I know that guy, Christian, but he treats you and he treats other people with disrespect. Or maybe it's the kid at school, comes to youth group, wears the bracelet, parties hard on the weekend. Or maybe it's someone that you know on social media. I mean, there's a prime place for hypocrisy, right? It's like, happy anniversary to the love of my life. And the picture is lovey-dovey, but they don't even sleep in the same room together. Hypocrisy. Or here's another example. I was at a pastor's gathering a while back. Good times. Yeah. And one of the guys who I've known him for years came to me and he said this. He said, Mike, I hate my church. Quite an opening line from the pastor. And he said, I hate my church. I hate my church is not going well. And I thought, well, you hate them. That might just be a little part of the problem here. Right? I mean, you get up every week in front of a people that you secretly despise. Eventually, they're going to pick up on that. He said, well, the people, they don't volunteer to help with anything. And so one question for me, and my question was this, well, do you volunteer to help with anything? And I'm telling you, it was like deer in the headlights. It's hypocrisy. Maybe you've seen hypocritical Christians. Maybe you've been hurt. Maybe you've even been abused by hypocritical Christians. It can be deeply painful. It's been said that the single greatest cause of atheism in the world today is Christians who claim Jesus with their lips, but deny Jesus with their lifestyle. In a study by the Barna Research Group, they discovered this. 85% of unchurched people believe that Christians are hypocrites. 85%. That's a really big number. And then the same study, 45% of people inside the church agree. That's a problem. Do you know the origin of the word hypocrite? It's a word. It used to be a word that referred to someone who was an actor on a stage. It used to be a word that was used to somebody who plays a role. Jesus is the one who took that word and he redefined it and he used that word to describe people who didn't practice what they preached. How ironic is that? The followers of the one who coined the phrase are now the ones who are, most often accused of it. Do you know what Jesus actually says about hypocrisy? Check this out. You might actually like it. He said this, Matthew 23, verse 15, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You travel over land and sea to win one single convert, and when you have succeeded, you make them twice as much a child of hell as you are." That is not an endorsement. Jesus was adamantly opposed to hypocrisy. Jesus called hypocrisy out as sin. Don't write off Christianity because of some of the Christians that you happen to know. The existence of hypocrisy within a group, that does not prove that the group in and of itself is false. Right? I mean, hypocrisy is all over the place. Any parents who kind of insist on to your kids, you got your room, you got to clean up your room. But then your garage is an absolute disaster. That's hypocrisy. Any environmental advocates who will drive an SUV, that's hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is all over the place because all belief systems draw some people who don't fully live out its standards, because it is way easier to believe in something than to actually live something. Don't give up on Jesus. Don't give up on the church just because you have been disillusioned by some of his followers. Acts 23, verse 3, then Paul said to him, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. You sit there to judge me according to the law, yet you yourself violate the law by commanding that I be struck. It's hypocrisy. And this isn't just Ananias, you know. I think God puts this in here to turn that and ask us the question. And here's the question: are you a hypocrite? And maybe you're like, whoa, that's a little blunt. Well, don't worry. You don't have to raise your hand. It's just between you and God. Do you ever play a role? Do you ever manage your image? You know, do you ever just dress the part? Do you ever pose? Do you ever whitewash the outside to cover up what's on the inside? Is there anything in your lifestyle that you are hiding? Hypocrisy is one of those things that is relatively easy to see in others, but it's difficult to see in yourself. What did he do about it? Well, Acts chapter 23, two things that Paul did about this. Here's the first one, verse 4. Those who were standing near Paul said, "How dare you insult God's high priest?" They called out Paul for trash talking the high priest. Now, Paul, interesting, he doesn't get defensive. Paul, he doesn't even try to explain it. Here's what he does. Verse 5, Paul replied, "Brothers, I did not realize he was the high priest, for it is written, 'Do not speak evil about the ruler of your people.'" That's an apology. The Apostle Paul, well, he apologized. Remember, he just got hit in the mouth. Ananias did him wrong. But Paul recognized that he didn't take the high road himself. And so Paul, he ends the cycle of hypocrisy and he accepts responsibility for his part. How about you? Are you a hypocrite? Well, I am. When honest, I think most of us fall somewhere on the continuum between Jesus and spawn of Satan. Or somewhere on that continuum, and where kind of depends on the day. If when you hear this topic of hypocrisy come up, if you feel a little uncomfortable, I think that's actually a really good thing, because that means you're not in complete denial. That means you have some level of self-awareness, and you might be open to the leading and the directing and the reorienting by the Holy Spirit. You know, one of the vital practices of spiritual disciplines is this one, is just to create some space, to get offline, to just spend a little time just to be with God. Just to recognize his presence. Doesn't have to be a long time, but just to create that space every day in life and to listen. Spirit, is there anything that you want to bring up in my life? Well, that's the first thing. Here's the second thing that Paul does in Acts chapter 23. He says this, "My brothers," verse 6, "I am a Pharisee, descended from Pharisees. I stand on trial because of the hope of the resurrection of the dead." He brings up the resurrection, and that causes a big old argument. Now, here's the question that I have about this is, why did Paul do that? Why did Paul bring up the resurrection of Jesus? Why did Paul change the subject from hypocrisy to resurrection? Well, here's why. Because resurrection, that is the solution. That is the only true solution to hypocrisy. Let me get at that this way. Do any of you want to not be a hypocrite? Maybe that's why you're here today, or maybe that's why you're with us online. You're taking a step to get closer to God. Or maybe your reality is you've had one of those weeks. You don't even remember what happened on Friday night. You're just filled with regret. Or maybe you're faking it. Things look good on the outside, but on the inside, you know. We can all stop hypocrisy. We can all bring an end to hypocrisy with just 3 words. 3 words. Here they are. I have issues. That does it. I have issues. I have struggles. I mess up. Jesus put that this way. Matthew 23:26. He said, first, clean the inside of the cup and dish, and then the outside also will be clean. Jesus is saying, well, be open, be honest, be vulnerable, be self-aware, be transparent, because sin grows best in the dark. Share it with God. Let the Holy Spirit do a work inside that will overflow to the outside. Acts chapter 23. Jesus has 0 tolerance for hypocrisy, but he has unlimited grace for all who stop pretending and say, I have issues. Forgive me, help me, heal me, change me, restore me. Because the solution to hypocrisy is found right here. On the night when Jesus was betrayed, it was the night before the cross. He was gathered with his disciples, and he took a loaf of bread. And he said to them, well, this is my body. And here's what he meant by that. He meant, I'm here. I'm in the flesh, and I want to let you know why that is. I want you to understand the reason why I left heaven and was incarnated as a human. I want you to have clarity on why I did that. He said, I did that because, well, there's sin in this world. Isn't that obvious? We live in a broken world. We live in a fallen world. We can see that all over the place. That's our reality. God's not unaware of that. He's very aware of that. And he also recognizes this sin. It's not just out there. It's not just in our world. It's also in us. He wants to do something about that. And so he says, this is my body. And it's broken for you. He's talking about the cross. He's talking about willingly laying down his life, sacrificing his life for us. This is Jesus' way of saying, I know that you have issues. I know that you struggle. I know sometimes you fall short. I know sometimes you mess up. That's why I came. That's why I came. That's the reason. I came to forgive you. I came to restore you. I came to redeem you. I came to reconcile you. I came to save you. I came to give you a new, fresh start, a new beginning. I came to connect you to God. And he took the cup and he said, well, this represents my blood. It's going to be shed. It's going to be poured out. Why? For you. For you. For you. This is a gift. This is grace. And no one needs to live a life of hypocrisy because we have a God who forgives, who loves, who rescues, who is this good.